All right. So tonight we're going to go over BIRP note assignment number 3, which is the third in the series. Uh, Tonight it'll be on the change plan worksheet. Sort of similar to like doing a treatment plan, but not as involved. And but it's another good demonstration of meeting the client where he is at, collaborating on a change plan. Because remember, whenever we're doing treatment planning, it should always be a collaboration with your client. Uh, Treatment planning or any kind of change plan, if it is counselor centered, it's probably not going to work really well with the client. Does that make sense? And sometimes, and I've been around for a while, and there are certain things that have to be on a treatment plan. For example, if you're doing drug Medi-Cal funding, they want to see that that client has had a physical in the past 12 months. If they have not had a physical, then that has to be on the treatment plan, as an example. So that's more, it's not really client directed, it's more funding directed. However, you can work with the client to make it more client directed, if that makes sense. And we'll talk about treatment planning more in a later session, but I kind of wanted to point out the collaboration aspect of it that you'll see in this video tonight. Okay, so just as a reminder, and this is a repeat, this is the BIRP note format. And when it comes to the BIRP note format, remember B stands for behavior, I stands for intervention, R stands for response, and P stands for plan. And next to the BIRP, you'll see highlighted in yellow, for instance, B, behavior. What was the client's participation in session? So if you're writing a note in San Diego County, this is one of the prompts that San Diego County and Drug Medi-Cal wants to see. And so that's why I've integrated it into BIRP. Same thing with provider support and interventions. This is where the auditors will look for what were the interventions that were provided to the client and what was the support that was provided to the client. And obviously that goes into the intervention I section. Remember with B is only about the client. So when you're writing your narrative, part of that note, that paragraph, it should only be focused on what the client did or said or how they presented in session. When it comes to the intervention piece, this is where you're only focusing on what you did as the counselor. And as you're watching these videos and looking at the interactions between Fabian and Dr. Curtis, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of Dr. Curtis. Think of yourself as I am the one providing this service. And that's how I want you to write the note. R is the response. And so in response, we're doing a couple of things. One, we're describing the client's progress on their treatment plan, their goals, their action steps, or any objectives that they have. And we're also assessing, so if we're describing their progress, we're assessing their progress, aren't we? And we're also assessing their response to what happened in the session as well. And remember, you always want to use as evidenced by. So if you say that the client did not respond well, it's not enough just to say that the client did not respond well. You need to provide evidence of that. So for example, the client did not respond well to the interventions as evidenced by his irritated affect and the statement, I really don't like this. That would be evidence that he did not respond well, as an example. Or if he's experiencing ambivalence and says, I kind of want to change, but I kind of want to still use cannabis, that's evidence of him being contemplative, right? So you could say something like Fabian is in the contemplation stage of change, as evidenced by his statement, I still want to use, but I also want to get clean, right? Something to that effect. And then finally, the plan, the P. What is the client's ongoing plan? And if there are any new issues, and I don't think I've really mentioned this before, sometimes there aren't any new issues. I don't know that it's necessary to delineate that. In other words, to say there are no new issues. But your plan should always have two things. What is the client going to do for the next session? And what is the counselor going to do? The other thing to consider with the client's ongoing plan is you may indicate here if there's something that needs to be changed. You might indicate that here as well. Are there any questions so far on that? All right. So that is the basic BIRP note format. And this is what I want you guys to be using when you're writing your BIRP notes. All right. And remember the BIRP note checklist. This is downloadable through Canvas. I'm sure most of you already have it, but I'm just going to review it real fast. And each section, B, I, R, and P, has a series of things that you can check off. Did I include the client's observations, thoughts, direct quotes, or interactions? Did I include what I observed in the session regarding the client's mood or correction, affect and appearance, and what did the client say their mood was, for example? You might want to describe the general content and process of the session from the client's point of view. And you'll notice here in red, San Diego County DMC ODS standards. I put in red on the BIRP note checklist what the standard is that the county is looking for when they complete audits of our providing services. So that is also on there. Please use the checklist. I don't consider it cheating. It's helping you write your notes. I think the most important thing is that you're learning how to write the BIRP note, and the more you do it, the better you'll get. So, any questions on the BIRP note checklist? All right. Well, let's go ahead and view the video. One thing I do need to check here. Because I think I forgot. I got to check my settings for a second, so I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so we'll go ahead and watch the video, and then we'll talk about the session on the other side and go through the BIRP note.
Okay, the stress from that. So friends that are, hey, we're used to use. So to just summarize, you know, you've talked about you like using marijuana, but you value your job and your home more, and you realize that continued use would jeopardize both of those. You've expressed now an interest and also a confidence in the ability to change. I think now it might be helpful to, as long as you're willing, you stop me at any point if you think I'm going too fast or far with this, but to put together maybe a change plan so that we've got kind of something on paper to help you of what you're looking at doing. And I guess what would be the initial goal? You've been using daily, and now you're telling me that, hey, I'm willing to look at giving up.
Yeah, well, I think my big goal is just to kind of give it up and deal with things in a different way, I think.
Okay. When might you be willing to do that? Stop using?
As soon as I can find ways to deal with stress.
Okay. So if we work on some breathing techniques today, and remember, these take practice, okay? So the coping skills are a lot like learning to play the guitar, learning a language, and so forth, and that it just requires constant kind of practice. And if we were to wait, until you really got practice, it could be a long time. And by that time, you could have already failed a drug screen. So what I'm wondering is, if we taught you something today, would you be willing to take that and kind of commit to not using from here on out until you see me again next week?
Yeah.
And we're going to do this on it's a day-by-day basis, and I'd like to hook you up with a group too. So this would be a group that you could attend in the evening, and that would help support folks like you that are going through these types of changes. But so if the goal is that you're going to stop using as of today, what would be obstacles? What are some obstacles that you can see?
I think some of the friends that I have now, I know they kind of like me just because I'm with them, and if they're smoking pot, I should be smoking pot too.
Okay.
And then I kind of know if I'm not, they don't like to be around me. And then even just family, I don't know how I feel if they're going to be supportive, or they just think that it's a joke or what.
Okay.
And the stress from that.
So friends that are, hey, we're used to you smoking, and family not used to how you're behaving, perhaps. Perhaps. So what would be a way to overcome that obstacle?
Maybe talking to a few people other than the people that I'm talking to now. Kind of reaching out to some old friends, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, and there was actually two things. One was the friends, one was family. But perhaps reaching out to some friends that you know that don't use, that perhaps you haven't dealt with in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. We never know what their action's going to be.
Yeah.
So that may be something we need to role play, because they might be like, well, why are you haven't been hanging around me? But that does sound like that could be a positive step. I'm wondering about, are there any things you can tell yourself? Because we can't always control what other people are going to do. I can get you in touch with a group that you can attend tonight, which is going to be people that are really trying to stay clean and are. So that would be one. Who knows what kind of relationships you can make there. But are there things you can tell yourself that would be motivational?
It's worth it.
It's worth it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to create some reminder cards.
Okay.
And what I'd ask you to do is, this would be something I'd probably read to myself when I wake up in the morning. Maybe let's just think about it: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe even before going to bed. But again, the way we learned to play an instrument or learn a new language and all that kind of stuff was doing it over and over again. So maybe one of the reminder cards would be, hey, this is worth it. And it's worth it because I like my job. What might be something else? It might be good to have like 2 or 3 different reminder cards that you can just read to yourself as a part of this change plan.
It's the best way to go. I mean, I don't know what else to think of.
Okay.
But it's best for me, even just physically, my health and what it may do to my body.
And if we say that positive, I can be healthier.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I can experience greater health.
Oh.
Is that?
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in.
Yeah.
it.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can experience greater health. And there may not be another one, but would there be? Is there anything else that we've got? Hey, this is worth it because I really like my job. And then the second one is, I can experience greater health. I can breathe easier, not be as foggy at it.
Maybe just even like being myself, like a sense of independence that I can do things on my own. Like I can do it I'm capable.
I am capable.
Yeah.
I am capable. Okay. That speaks to me, and so, but because what I'm hearing you say there is, hey, I don't have to rely on crutches. I can do this on my. It's okay to be who I am.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you be willing, and this, you're not going to have to do this for the rest of your life, but just for this week, between now and when I see you again next week, read these, and let's say 3 times a day, when you wake up, before lunch, and before you go to bed.
Okay.
Okay. Read them several times if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. So that'll be a part of our change plan, our initial change plan, and then we'll talk more about that next week.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
All right. So, did anybody notice anything or any comments on what you just observed? Like, what did Dr. Curtis do with Fabian here?
Well, he got him to move from a eventual I'll stop at some point to a commitment to stopping as of today in a pretty smooth way.
All right. Yes. Which
I
is part of motivational interviewing. Yeah.
I would say that he also gave him or help him to expand outside of the box of maybe 1 or 2 potential cards to more to make him think about how he can use the cards or the treatment to help him
Yep.
in his day-to-day by saying evidence by saying can you think of other things that may provoke you to stay clean or why you want to. So making him really think about within himself without giving him the answers. And specifically, he said, I don't want to give you the answers. So he wanted him to really think about, to take initiative of his treatment or his sobriety, I should say.
Yes, indeed. And that's part of the collaborative effort, right? So he is using motivational interviewing to elicit change talk. And remember, when we're doing our interventions with our clients, right? Think about the reasons why I am doing the intervention that I am doing. Like there should be some, in my mind as a clinician, an end goal. So I'm going to collaborate with the client to create this change plan. I'm going to reframe some of his narrative. He also used some reframing, which is a cognitive behavioral technique also. And he elicited change talk from Fabian. Did a really, really good job of that.
Professor, this is Joel.
Hey, Joel.
I just wanted to mention Dr. Curtis did 2 separate things. I thought one was to give him a new internal message. So it's, something that he's going to read to himself, but it's also a relational group meeting so that he can go and relate to others. So he's working on both at the same time. And both of those things are, they can be potentially very wide ranging. You go to a group, you don't know who you're going to meet,
Right.
what connection you're going to make, or when you're reading your change card, your reminder card, you may think of another great reason to not use,
Right.
whatever drug. So it's an interesting way of asking him to look at inside, but also to look outside.
Right. Yep. To gather that support. And if you recall, like from the very first session, one of the things that Dr. Curtis explored with Fabian in the first session was what were some of the things that have worked for you in the past that helped you not use cannabis in the past. So, and that relational piece came up. Friends, when he reached out to friends, and then in that first session he said, and I really don't have that many friends anymore. So you see how we're tying into the current change plan a statement that Fabian made 2 sessions ago. So that's another good example. Another thing that he did, he really did a good job of meeting Fabian where he was at. Remember in the beginning, he says, now tell me if I'm going too fast, stop me at any point, something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, right? So indicating to the client, you are in charge here, right? But he was also a little directive at some points too, wasn't he? So, and motivational interviewing can have some aspects, and same thing with CBT, can have some directive aspects. Like he really took over writing down those cards. Now, if it was me in session, I probably would have had Fabian write the cards, but that's just me. And that's not the purpose of us examining this. It's really about practicing to write burp notes, but that was something that I particularly noticed. So, all right, so let's go ahead and look at
So,
the B. So this is what I wrote in response to this session. So I'm putting myself as in the place of Dr. Curtis. So I'm acting as the clinician here, right? So Fabian attended an individual session with Dr. Curtis. He was on time and he was attentive. During the session, Fabian's narrative focused on his willingness to engage in creating a change plan. Obstacles to ceasing his cannabis use were reported as friends who use cannabis, peer pressure, and worries about how his family will respond. He stated, I think some of the friends I have now, if they're smoking pot, I should be smoking pot. And he also stated, if I'm not, they don't want to be around me, or they don't like to be around me. He also expressed the concern that his family may be supportive or just think that it's a joke. Fabian described pro-social activities such as talking to people other than the people I'm talking to now, reaching out to some old friends, and his positive affirmations were reported as, it's worth it, it's the best way to go, and I am capable. Fabian presented with euthymic affect. He was alert, oriented, and actively engaged. So something I want to explain here, you'll notice that this statement here has an ellipses between the two parts of the statement because I cut out the middle part. So he was talking about his friends in the beginning. He was thinking about them and that if they're smoking pot, I should be smoking pot too. So that's what that means. Just to explain. All right, so are there any questions on the B or any other thoughts or anything that you saw that you might put into the B?
This is Brian, and I have no imagination. What I heard you describe right now for me, it's I make that video made more sense to me because I need other people to look at it, and that's what's driving me crazy. Is because it's such a difficult time I even forgot writing about the cannabis or the marijuana or whatever. I don't see the perspective as you do.
Right.
And I do it with people, but I have no idea. This is really hard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard, I give up on it.
Well, I don't want you to give up, but here's a suggestion I might make, and I would make this actually to everyone, especially in this learning phase. You might take the video and play a piece of it and stop it, jot down a note. You could use the burp note checklist as kind of like a guide. What do I see here with this? And yes, in this first part, as you're learning this, it's going to take you a while to write your note and to get acquainted with it. The other thing that I will offer, that I have offered, continuing to offer, is we can set up office hours and work individually on it and break this video down. I'm more than willing to do that. So just email me and we'll make an appointment. That's not a problem. Because I definitely want to help everyone get through this, right? Because the end result is that I hope that you learn this and can take this at least this basic out into the field, and really once you're actually working with clients, and I agree it can be hard to do it from a video. You may find that all of this may snap back with your first internship going, oh, that's what was meant here. Oh, this is what I need to do. So you're actually learning now, even if you don't realize it. And I'm saying this to everybody. It might
Thank you
just
for a solution.
yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. There's many different ways to tackle this, especially in the learning phase. And everybody has different ways of learning stuff. So so yeah, I hear you.
Thank you.
And believe me, in the beginning, I was no expert at this, right? I have the benefit of doing this for years, yeah. So please use me as a resource, and we can set up appointments too.
Professor, I have a question. This
Sure.
is Joel.
Yes.
This change plan, would it be another treatment plan or a correction on the original treatment plan? Help me put this into the treatment plan sequence of events.
Sure. So he calls it a change plan. That's kind of why I also said think of it like a treatment plan. In this
Okay.
particular case, I would treat this as an initial treatment plan.
Okay.
So this is the first thing that they're doing. In the drug Medi-Cal system, right, if there's any major events, you can update or add an addendum to a treatment plan. Or if they've completed the items on their treatment plan and they need a new one, then you just do a new updated treatment plan, a follow-up. So, so that would be like the sequence. So you'd have an initial, an addendum if you needed, or an updated plan later on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, any other questions? All right, now moving on to the intervention piece. So this is the provider support and intervention. So this is what Dr. Curtis did. So remember, in the B, behavior part of the note, we're only focused on Fabian and his presentation and statements and behavior in the session. In intervention, this is only about the clinician. What did Dr. Curtis do in the session? And this is what I observed him do. So Dr. Curtis collaborated with Fabian in values exploration, goal setting, and creating a change plan. Fabian was affirmed in his interest and ability to change his cannabis use behavior. MI, motivational techniques were used, including open-ended questions, reflective listening, affirmations, and summarizing. Again, I'll say Dr. Curtis did this very well. Dr. Curtis assisted Fabian in reframing his positive affirmation regarding his health into, I can experience greater health. Dr. Curtis provided psychoeducation on breathing exercises and assisted Fabian with his positive affirmation reminder cards. So something that I want to say here is I put a lot of detail in here. You may not necessarily need all of this detail. It might be perfectly fine to just have this first sentence and maybe the second or third sentence. And you might even find shorter ways of writing this out. So remember, style of writing might be different from individual to individual, and I don't want people to get caught up on that. The important thing here is, does the note capture what the interventions happened during the session? So I'll just say that. Any questions or other observations? All right. Not hearing any, we'll sorry, I misspoke. We'll move on to the response portion of the note. And so this is Fabian's response and assessment. And this is where we're going to describe his progress on his goals and action steps. Now, since we're creating a treatment plan, that's the progress that we're actually noting right now, right? So Fabian has made progress and is in the early preparation stage of change, as evidenced by his narrative and the creation of the change plan. Fabian was actively listening, as evidenced by his eye contact, leaning in, and his on-topic narrative. He responded well to the change plan activity, as evidenced by his narrative and active level of participation. Here, you may put in a quote if you want. I actually like quotes. I did not have any quotes for this. Sometimes you might not. And then I ended with, he has sufficient insight as evidence to his ability to articulate the reasons to discontinue cannabis use and the negatives of cannabis use. So just kind of like talked about his assessment at this stage. So any questions or any other observations on anything somebody else might have seen? All right, we'll move on to the plan. And remember, your plan should always include 3 things. I usually break it down, should always 2 things. What is the client going to do and what is the clinician going to do? But also it's important to have the next session date and time. So you'll see that here. So client's ongoing plan, including any new issues. Next session on Monday, October 19th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. Fabian will attend a support group and read his reminder cards 3 times per day. Dr. Curtis will engage Fabian in the role play activities and breathing exercises. And remember, that came from earlier in the session when he was talking about, if I can send you out the door now with, some tools you could use during the next week. He didn't really get a chance to get into that. So that's kind of why I threw that into the plan. And remember, these are just short snippets. So it probably was done, but not captured in the video that we saw. So any questions on the plan? Or would anybody else have written it a different way? There's probably a couple of different ways that this could be written.
He would include, the plan would include the group that
Yes.
Fabian was going to be referred to.
Yes, it would. Yes, and I did put that here. Fabian will attend a support group. Because yes, that would be very, very important. We could even get more specific, and maybe even suggest, like if I was working with Fabian, I might have said, so when you go to the support group tonight, have you thought about how you might interact, right? Encourage him to get some phone numbers, and maybe make this a SMART goal. I will get 1 new phone number and call that person during the week and report on this the following week. That could be another perfectly appropriate plan for the upcoming week.
I had put to do like at the end to kind of summarize it, was for him to do, or suggest him do 90 meetings in 90 days.
Okay. Could definitely put that in the change plan. Absolutely. Because remember, on this, in how the session ended, was they're going to talk next week more about the change plan. So absolutely. Any other thoughts? All right. All right, and so again, here are the references. Thank you, Dr. Curtis, for your videos. They are very helpful. I actually like these videos for a couple of reasons. One, because of the motivational interviewing that is being demonstrated. So you're learning about that just by watching the videos. And of course, the burp note practice. And then remember the burp note checklist comes from Mid-America ATTC, although I did edit it slightly to add in the county requirements and the DMC requirements, just so that you guys would have that and know why you're writing the notes the way you are when you get into the field. So anyway, any other questions? All right, and we are going to end the recording, and we'll be ending class shortly.